again everyone. At this point, we are going to talk about the first poem of Dr. Jose Rizal, which is Sa Aking Mga Kabata or To My Fellow Children. This poem, as what I have said, is known as the first poem of Dr. Jose Rizal, and it was written in 1869 when Rizal was only 8 years old. And unlike most of Rizal's poems, which were originally written in Spanish, this one was originally written in Tagalog. And from the National Library of the Philippines, record shows that Sa Aking Mga Kabata was not published in the original Tagalog, but in a free Spanish translation of the Tagalog by Epifanio de los Santos as a Mis Compañeros de Nines. In this poem, Rizal points out the relationship between love of the native tongue and the role played by language for a people. And Rizal showed here a very positive attitude about the development of the native tongue. Positive not only in desiring its development, but also in recognizing its capacity for development. However, many scholars nowadays believe that Jose Rizal was not the real author of this poem. Doubts concerning the real author of this poem have emerged, and critics say that he could not possibly have written the poem due to his juvenile age. And as what I have said, Jose Rizal was only 8 years old that time, and normally the age range from 7 to 8 is in the developmental age by which the child is just beginning to read. Furthermore, Jose Rizal had a preserved correspondence of letters with Pasiano, his brother, expressing that he had difficulties in using Tagalog language, particularly in translation. And now the big question here is that, was the controversial poem really written by Jose Rizal? What do you think? And I want you to think hard before you answer it. And if you have knowledge that you can share with us, you can comment down. And yeah, that's it. See ya!
Our mother tongue. The poem begins with contrast by conditional statement that love for language must result to freedom. The poem talks about love and taking pride on one's own language to acquire a sense of freedom and identity. Rizal wants us to love our language because it's our identity. Mother tongue is defined as the first language that person learns, and that language is used to the person's home country. We should love our mother tongue and knows the importance to it in our life. Our mother tongue is the one who can prove to us that you or we are a Filipino. Our mother tongue is a gift. It gives to us so that we can communicate to others. Without it, we can express our thoughts or ourselves to others that can speak our mother tongue.
My first inspiration or mi primera inspiración. So this poem is a Spanish poem that is believed to have been written by Jose Rizal when he was only 9 years old. So Rizal's first poem, Mi Primera Inspiración, was most likely written during his time at Ateneo. Then this poem was written in honor of his mother's birthday, named Dunya Chudora Alonzo, suggested the terms of perfume, the flowers, song of the birds, Easter Day of Bloom, and festive day. So Rizal, poetic verse shows internal love and appreciation for his mother, and this is somehow his way of paying tribute to all the efforts of her mother. And Rizal also said that Filipinos should cherish their mother tongue. Rizal wrote this to remind us that our mother can be our first source of inspiration. First, she is the one who bear us and provide us with guidance from the start. So that's all, and thank you.
Good day everyone, my name is Crystal Jane Dito. and memories of my town. Dr. Jose Rizal loved his hometown Calamba and Laguna. He fondly remembered his memories of the said town. In 1876, Dr. Jose Rizal is a 15 years old student in Ateneo Municipal de Manila wrote the poem in Memories of My Town. It was written to express his love and appreciation for the place where he grew up. In the poem, Dr. Jose Rizal described his childhood and experiences. Other teens or adults can relate to it. Based on how he described his childhood and experiences, it's like a boy who lived happy and also how people before treat him. Dr. Jose Rizal is not just sharing his childhood and experiences, but also he knows that if some people will read the poem, will relate. Dr. Jose Rizal had the happiest and most beautiful memories of the place, the hospitality and friendliness, as well as the industry of the people of Calamba. Those memories were influential in molding his character and values.
Our national hero, Jose Rizal, despite of his young age, had expressed high gratitude and regard for education. He believes in the significant role which education plays in progress and welfare of a nation, as evident in his poem titled Education Gives Luster to the Motherland. Education gives knowledge, knowledge gives wisdom, great wisdom benefits everyone. Jose Rizal believes that education is vehicle for a country, prosperity, and victory, especially the success. Hence, through the poem of encourage Filipinos to acquire education for them to be able to fulfill their dreams, our dreams, and to improve their motherland. His high regard for education was evident in his determination to seek the best education as possible even across the shores of his country. The poem he wrote, Education Gives Luster to the Motherland, gives a very important meaning and conveys an important message. Especially to us, we must learn and improve our education to make a better future of us so that we can make ourselves proud of what we are.
Jose Rizal, regardless of certain views later in his life that were controversial and somewhat contrary to the Roman Catholic faith, was brought up Catholic. He wrote this sonnet during his stay at the Ateneo Municipal de Manila when he was about 15 years old. When spoken in modern English, the first stanza reads, Mary, sweet peace and dear solace, you are the fount of pain mortal. It is from you that the stream of succor emanates, which without ceasing gives life to your soil. It is clearly in praise to the Virgin Mary, whom no hard-working man can prosper. His high regard to the Virgin Mary is evident in these 4 lines. The next 4 lines are more straight to the point. He prays to Mary, who sits in what he imagines in her glorious throne above, and begs her to hear his plea. This indicates a sense of eagerness and desperation. My voice that rises with rapid flight signifies a sense of urgency to the words in his sorrowful cry. The last stanza sounds more like a prayer. It is evident in these verses that even though Rizal was still at such a young age, he felt and foreseen that life to him would be difficult.
Hello everyone, I'm Christian J. Gulles and I'm the one to discuss one of the poem of Rizal titled A Poem That Has No Title. So this short poem of Rizal has no title. It speaks of his thanksgiving to God for shooting him during his trouble and dark moments. So in the poem, he also expressed his gratitude to God for allowing him to be born to be respectable and honorable family and belong to a rich country. The difficulties and struggles of Rizal which he suffered and his sadness were evident in the verses of this poem. In the first stanza, Rizal begins the poem with a prayer of gratitude. The poem is essentially about God. The fact that he starts by referring to God as the one who suited him in his great loss and give him a rest in his struggles may very well indicate that the hero's life was full of suffering and hardship. And that was in these dark moments that he sensed the most God's presence. And next stanza, Rizal goes back to the days before his birth. Rizal imagined his birth a result of God's command to live in a imaginative reference to God's ability to produce something out of nothing and talk to all things into being. And Rizal imagines his birth a result of God's commands to live. Also, he admits that his spirits impelled to the positive, which we interpret with a clear yet deterring sense of appreciation. In the last stanza, Rizal claims that God blessed him by allowing him to be born into a noble and noble family, as well as into a world with no bounds. He ends the verse with a poem's only line that reflects sorrow. We can see the burden that the hero still carries in his heart, that of our nation lacks of fortune and wisdom, which he was no doubt still struggling for when he wrote this composition. That's all. Thank you.
To the Philippine Youth is a winning poem in 1879, submitted to the literary contest held by the Artistic Literary Lyceum of Manila, a society of literary men and artists. The inspiring poem, written by Jose Rizal at the age of 18, was said to be of flawless form, which aimed to implore the Filipinos to rise from indolence. It is said to be a classical piece of Philippine literature for the reasons that Spanish literary authorities recognize it as an impressive poem written in Spanish by a Filipino, and it was the foremost literary piece to display the nationalistic belief that Filipinos were the fair hope of the fatherland. The poem is largely intended to convey the importance of one's affection and appreciation for one's dialect or language, as it served as a connection and intermediary between people's countries. Rizal praised the rising generation, and his first testimony and presentation of his nationalism can be found in this poem. He specifically referred to the Philippines as his home or motherland in this literary work, and refers to the role of youth in nation building. It is a challenge to the youth, urging them to run for a glorious crown awaits them. The sphere here refers to the whole world, demonstrating Rizal's belief that Filipino youth are as bright as those in any other nation, and that they are capable of competing with even the most powerful forces if they simply set their minds to making the most of what they already have.
To the Philippines by Jose Rizal. So this poem was written to express his love and appreciation for the place where he grew up, to the Philippines. Warm and beautiful like Huri of yore, as gracious and as pure as the break of dawn, when darling clouds take in a sapphire tone, sleeps a goddess on the Indian shore. In the first stanza, using metaphor and simile, Rizal creates a description of his homeland. He compares her to an Huri, which means a beautiful maiden who, according to Muslim beliefs, lives in paradise with the blessed.
It comprised one versified sentence and been arranged in a more modern tongues. It goes, when the clouds are tinted blue in the sky, keeps like a morn, pure and full of grace.
Perhaps the poet imaged his land to be in a deep slumber because he believes she has yet to be acquainted with the greatness and equal respect as other lands. He describes the Philippines. The word feet could be a reference to her numerous beaches. By saying that the West adores her smile, Rizal managed to include the truth about his country's conquest by the West. The third and fourth stanza. My muse, most enthusiastic and elate, sings to her among naiads and undines. I offer her my fortune and my fate. With myrtle, purple roses, and flowering green, and lilies crown her brow immaculate. O artist, and exalt the Philippines. Here the poet adopts a humble posture, standing in awe and adoration of his motherland. His use of the words enthusiastic and elate demonstrates this. To extol the Philippines, he invokes undines and naiads, mythological water nymphs, as well as all the nature represented by the three flowers, myrtle, roses, and lilies.
Maria Clara is a character in Jose Rizal's novel Noli Me Tangere, and this poem is part of the novel sung by the character. The first stanza expresses how wonderful everything is in one's own native land. The hours are sweet, everything is friendly, the breeze is vivifying, love is more tender, and even death is gratifying. Rizal represents Maria Clara's passion for her homeland, which colors everything else she sees. This passion transforms everything else, no matter how mundane or ordinary, into more magnificent as even the most beautiful wonders elsewhere. The second stanza employs metaphor, where the motherland is a human mother, and the speaker of the poem, her infant child. Moreover, the last stanza implies that death can only be sweet in the arms of the one you love. As the speaker here likens herself to an infant child, then no death can be sweeter in the arms of her mother. And deathly, Rizal closes, is the breeze for one without a country, without a mother, and without love. In addition, the prevailing emotion that is exhibited in the lines of the poem is love, particularly Maria Clara's love for her native land.
Hymn to Labor. So here are some facts about this poem. Jose Rizal wrote the poem Hymn to Labor or Himno al Trabajo before he left Calamba in 1888. This poem is in response to the request of his friends in Lipa, Batangas. They wanted a hymn to commemorate the elevation of Lipa from town to a city in January 1888, dedicated to the industrious folks of Lipa. The poem consisted of lyrical conversation of men, wives, maidens, and children. This composition by Rizal, which was originally written in Spanish, in general, speaks however Filipino is willing to work hard or labor for his country.
The first four verses comprise the chorus. It signifies that every Filipino in his patriotism will keep a watchful yet living eye on his country with equal position at wartime and in times of peace.
This will be no desertion, especially during the most difficult times in the country's history, even if it means he pays for his loyalty with his life. For the men, family and country are inspiration and motivation enough amidst exhausting labor. They do it not for the money, but for the income can do to benefit greater good, family, home, land, and motherland. The role of wife during the time of Rizal was plain and simple. She was the steward of the home, the mothers of the children. Maidens, who salute to labor and encourage the young men to give their lives to hard work and industry for the good of the nation. And lastly, children have high regard for the approval of their elders. It underlines the importance of keeping the culture and tradition
that is handed down in them from the previous generation.
The Kundiman poem. Kundiman aims to create a space where those histories, personal and collective, are respected and discussed. History experiences are not separate from writing, but inform the writer's unique voice. Kundiman believes that out of those difficult stories can come healing, beauty, humor, and transcendence. Kundiman is a classic form of Filipino love song, or so it seemed to colonialist forces in the Philippines. In fact, the Kundiman, the singer who expressed undying love for his beloved, is actually singing for love of country. So, as a title form of Philippines music, the Kundiman is a traditional love song, particularly one that expressed devotion for its romantic object. A scholar proposed that it was derived from the press kung hindi man, so which was the theme of most of the song in this from during that time. So Jose Rizal wrote Kundiman in Tagalog in September 12, 1891. This particular Kundiman, however, is not dedicated to particular maiden but to the one maiden whom the hero fully dedicated his life, the Philippines.
Rizal dedicated this poem to the Irish woman Josephine Bracken, whom we called the Dulce Extranjera, or in English, Sweet Foreigner. The poem somehow manifests that Rizal is smitten with Josephine. When Josephine was 18 years of age, she visited Manila for purpose of seeing Dr. Jose Rizal to accompany her adoptive father for an eye operation. Then, she developed an affection toward Dr. Jose Rizal. Despite her father's objection, despite several lady loves in the past, Josephine alone was the one Dr. Jose Rizal sought for a marriage. So Josephine prematurely gave birth to an 8-month baby boy, who existed only for 4 hours because it is premature. Rizal lost a son who was named Francisco, in honor of the hero father Don Francisco. So I will read the poem that Jose Rizal wrote to Josephine. Josephine, Josephine, who to these shores have come, looking for a nest, a home, like a wandering swallow. If your fate is taking you to Japan, China, or Shanghai, don't forget that on the shores, a heart for you beats high. So that was Jose Rizal dedicated a poem to Josephine. That's all.
Ni Ultimo Adios. So here are some facts about this poem. A brilliant creation was assumed to be written the night before Jose Rizal's execution on December 30, 1896. A day before his execution, he was visited by his mother, nephews, and siblings. Lucia, Josefa, Trinidad, Maria, and Narcisa. Trinidad was told by Rizal in English that something is inside the alcohol stove he was using in Tapitan. The stove was given by the guard to Narcisa. At their adobe, the sisters discovered a folded paper inside the stove. There, they unsigned, undated, and untitled poem consisting of 14 5 stanzas. The Rizal family reproduced and distributed the copies of it and sent copies to the hero's friends in the country and abroad. Mi Ultimo Adios, or My Last Farewell. is a poem written by Filipino propagandist and the writer Dr. Jose Rizal before his execution by firing squad on December 30, 1896. The piece was one of the last notes he wrote before his death. Mi Ultimo Adios was Rizal's farewell poem, which had no title and was unsigned at the time because he wrote it the night before he was executed. This was thought to be Rizal's last will and testament. Rizal was also sending his final message to his countrymen through this poem. And also, it is a poem written in honor of his homeland, the pre-Hispanic Philippines, for which he was giving his life. He also used the poem to bid his friends, family, and loved ones farewell. For his family to find, Rizal hid the poem in an alcohol stove. And lastly, it is a poem that tells us how beautiful the Philippines is and how Rizal wants us to learn from our past and to see the truth about how the world view us. Mi Ultimo Adios poem is the last, best, and most popular poem.